without thinking it's true. But we are going to talk DMR. Who's got a DMR radio here today? I mean, who owns one? Cool. Who feels really comfortable and wants to come up here and run the thing instead of me? Come on up, Jeff. Let's go.
I'm just.
Because I'm really bored. I don't want to do this again. No, the right answer is we got a lot of DMR stuff out there. It is. There are a few extra steps involved in doing this, and everybody gets. I'm supposed to stand on the spot where. Is that better?
Yeah.
Turn around.
There. Actually, we don't have
That's your best side anyway.
we don't have a wide angle lens.
Go back to your good side. Oh, yeah, my good side. The other half, the better half. It does take a little bit of effort, and it's a whole lot of reward. So I'm going to kind of really talk about how you use this stuff. So if you use DMR successfully in a given way, feel free to raise your hand and I'll highlight that. DMR can be a whole lot of things to a whole lot of people. You can simply talk with a digital, two digital radio. I'm sorry.
What is DMR?
Oh, good idea. So I have a DMR radio. So what do? DMR is a digital mobile radio system. Generically, it's been used to talk to anything that's a digital audio system. Specifically, it's Motorola's branded digital mobile radio, DMR. They use repeaters like we do on 2 meters or 440. We use a different protocol. It's actually digital. Yes, sir. Question?
What's the difference between DMR and Moto Turbo?
DMR is Moto Turbo. Moto Turbo is Motorola's trademarked wording that goes on the repeaters that they sell and use. So it's like buying a car versus a Chevy. So the car is DMR, digital mobile radio. The Chevy is
Motorola.
yeah, Motorola Turbo. Good, you guys are listening. That's the difference in terminology. Good question. There's tons of terminology in here. If you've got a word that you don't understand, wave, because that's what we're here to do, is answer those if you're trying to use a radio. Has anybody got a radio? Pull them out if you've got them with you. I brought 3 or 4. Yeah, there was a 2, 4, 5. Sorry. One of the most popular ones is the TYT MD380s. Everybody have these? These were the guys that broke the mold. They're the one that came out with the $115 radio, replaced this low-cost $250 CS750 that Jeff and I are probably the only ones that have.
Probably.
I guess Mike Salem's got one. But this was the early $250 radio. This is now $110, $115.
Which was cheap when it came out.
Yeah, $250 was awesome. I mean, I didn't even blink. Jeff's nodding the same thing. I didn't blink at the $250. That was awesome for a radio. D-Star radios, I've got a number. Anybody know what they paid for a D-Star radio?
$369.
360. Pardon?
I paid $800, but they were brand new in the country.
800, 350, 550, 2. You got a D-Star for 200? What'd you get?
31.
Who'd you steal it from?
eBay.
Oh, there you go. The D-Star stuff is branded up a lot higher. That's a different brand worth of stuff. They are branded for our friends at ICOM. DMR is kind of an open source piece you can get. This is a TYT. This is a Connect Systems radio. This is one called Radio Oddity. There are Baofangs that have the same software as this. You got a Baofang?
Yeah.
Okay. DMR. There's tons of them. The 250 was a great deal. We all loved it. Then the 115 came out, and we loved that. Then these dropped to 85, and we loved that. And now 85 seems to be the going price. Ed had talked about a $67. They had a special on the Radio Oddities for about 12 minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah, I missed it.
Yeah, I mean, somebody in here bought some of those. Did you get one? He got his free. He complained enough that they gave his money back. Go away, we don't want to talk to you. And it worked. But we had, I think it's Jorge from Colombia. put that link up on the group, and they had $67 versions of these at one time. I think Peter's was 75, wasn't it, for that Bofang? So they're in that sweet spot of 80 bucks.
Rodney and I went in together on the twofer.
Oh yeah, they have twofer specials for these $80. So under $100 you can get in. Well, back in the 80s when I started, talkies were on the order of $500, and that was real money back then. So a $100 radio is really swift. The best part of this thing is this is now an VHF and a UHF model. This has dual band capabilities. So it goes 140 to 148-ish and 440 to 470-ish in transmit receive on FM and what's this stuff called? Oh yeah, DMR. So it will do both DMR and FM capabilities, which is really cool to have in one radio. That's something to look for when you're buying. This is a Radioddity that has that feature. Because now I can pull up the 06 machine and listen on the 06 machine, and I can also listen on DMR and do the DMR on the same little radio. They're all about the 4 or 5 watt range. I don't know that anybody's got any power stories. I don't think anybody goes over 5 in a handheld. You've got mobile radios that you can use that go in the 40 and 50 watt range if you plan to do that. However, DMR, because it's digital and it pulses the signals, we'll talk about that, you typically get 30% better distance with 40% less battery use. So your battery is going to last almost twice as long, and you're going to go a third farther with that transmission. Question?
Well, I was going to say, I'm using low power all the time, hitting the local repeater from inside the house. And it's just the same as running high power. So I'm
Yeah.
putting 1.5 watts versus 5.
Right. And the neat thing is, if you go online, you can see what power levels you're actually getting into the repeater with. So it'll give you a signal, an S signal, to say this repeater is hearing me at S9 or S6 or S2 or S4. So you can actually put on a different antenna and try it and see what makes a difference. It's kind of neat to get that round trip feedback. It tends to get out of vehicles very easily. I've never I put one on an outside antenna once just because I've tried out the connector, but it's really never given me any additional range. There is a DMR repeater that's located on the top of, did we ever argue that out, 4 or 5?
They deny it, it's channel 4.
Channel 4 tower. It's on the channel 4, it's 755 feet in the air, and that one, they claim, and I've not found anybody to refute, 100-mile radius on that repeater.
And which one is that?
That's called OKC, North OKC, North Oklahoma City. And that was,
Where is East OKC?
East OKC is Don Clark's repeater, which is out on 240 and,
Anderson?
yeah, one of those roads out there. And there's somewhere out just a little bit east of town. So there's lots of repeaters to get in that thing. The magic happens in the radios. Your voice turns into digital in the radios. What we're talking about is operating pieces, and this is a Radioddity radio. If you look at all 3 of the talkies, they're very similar. You'll probably be used to the power and the audio knobs. They've all got rotating knobs that click and turn on. And I don't think anybody's got any problems with power. Is that a fair statement? Everybody's gotten their radio on, turned off. There's another one. The push to talk should be familiar. Left-hand side, there's a push to talk button on all of these. That's all familiar, what you're looking for. Microphone, earphone jack are similar on the side to everything you've ever seen on a talkie. And it uses those jacks as the programming cable, the programming connection. Are you stretching, Chad, or you got a question?
I actually got a question. Does
Oh.
it take the same programming cable as the other TYT and or Bofang radios, or is it another for the collection that's slightly off from the rest?
I will say, no, you can't use the same TYT and Radioddity because they're manufacturer specific, and that would void the warranty. However, It was cold this morning, and I reprogrammed both radios, and I didn't want to go get the TYT cable out of the car. So I used the radiality cable on both radios. Have you used, I've not tried a Bofang on one of these. Have you tried one of those?
Yeah,
It works?
no.
No. So Bofang will not work on these radialities and TYTs. These two go together. I think the right answer is you got to keep them straight. George has got a connector here with his remote mic, and that's the feature that these two use. And this is a TYT specific.
Bofang has a chip in the cable.
Oh, is that it? So they're smart?
Those have a chip in the cable too.
Yeah, I'm sure they all, because they're turning audio into, digital into audio, so that's how they get through that. Now, here comes the rub. Channel selectors vary by radio. The TYT has two knobs on the top, one that you rotate, and, I got it. One that you rotate, and it picks up different channels as you go around. It's 16 positions, it stops on both ends, so you can figure out where you're at. Ed 760 doesn't have a round rotary, it just keeps rolling.
That's right.
So it's a soft switch, it just keeps rolling. I tend to like this hitting an end so I can know where I want to drive it and drink it. I can do my radio all at the same time. Keeps down the trouble. Ed's is kind of a software, but doesn't that give you more features because?
You do, because you get actually more channels on switching zones. And then it'll reset, you get to set which, what's homes. When you turn it on, wherever it's turned, it goes to home.
So whenever you turn it on, it goes to that's your home channel that you're up against. That's the pluses and minuses. This radio, the radiality, has no button on the top, but it switches through channels with an up-down button. Pushes it up and pushes it down. Oddly, the radiality is the one I like the best, the interface, because you can use.
One-handed.
Yeah, there you go. That's the difference, isn't it? That gives you, see, I can drink and drive and do the radio with one hand. That's why I like it better.
Mike wants to know if they sell a left-handed phone.
Yeah, here.
It's twice the price.
Yeah, they do. They probably should. That'd be fun. The other cool thing is that's channels. So you're normally used to, say, 16 channels where you would switch back and forth amongst all those different channels. There's also something, and we'll talk about, show it a little bit more, in digital radios called zones. And you can flip from, you got 16 channels in zone 1, you flip to a different zone, and you have 16 new channels all over again. For those of us that you've used digital radios for 50 years in that manner, the programmable ones, Motorola had it locked back in the, I don't know where it was, the 90s where they started that. They came up with the zone idea. So you have 16 channels, you flip to another 16 total other channels. Really cool way to do it. You're looking at like 1,000 channels you could put in by doing that, moving that knob and raising them up and down. So that's going to be the channel selectors that vary. Too many things. Here we go. We're going to work on Simplex. Has anybody done Simplex DMR, or what we call talk around? Bill has?
Yeah.
Anybody else? No? Cool. Jerry has? Talk from one hand to the other is what I usually do with it.
While you're driving?
I'm not going to answer that one because there's a highway patrol member and a police officer in the room.
No guts, no glory.
Yes, both hands. But the idea is you can set your radio to Simplex. Does anybody know how to set their radio to talk around or Simplex?
The TYT is pseudo programming.
I don't know.
I'm sorry, TYT is what?
It's through the programming interface on the computer.
Well, that's how you can enable it,
And
but you can turn it on from the keyboard. So you can, let me see where I got it on mine.
I think that's
There it is. The standard TYT, bottom left, right, Bill? Bottom left and hold it?
Oh, I don't know.
Nope, bottom left and.
I don't know, keyboard.
Well, there are buttons, there's top left.
Button
No?
is,
I got too many radios. So that's power. On the left-hand side, above and below the PTT, there are usually two programmable buttons.
Yeah.
The good news is you can vary these to do anything you want. You can say, I want it to go up and down a zone. I think that's what I have this for. You can go up and down a zone and say, I want to go up to the next zone or down to the next zone. You can say, I want to change the power. So if, in my case, this one's set up so that if I want to, I can press and hold one of the buttons. It will then change it to a high and low power. So when you're doing programming on these, you can select all of those features. So Bill, what'd you say? Did you get yours up and running?
I push a program button, the top of above the PTT.
The one above it?
Push and hold.
Push and hold. Yep, that'll work. So the base one is set up as a push and hold on the top button. Now, in the display, I'm sure you can see that in the back, right? You can see this.
Yeah.
In the back, you can see, and for your edification, I will give you a description. There's a little arrow that shows up on the display panel. And if you see that little arrow, that's what's called talk around or simplex. That's how they denote. There's an now I know that. So if you have that little arrow turned, yes sir? You want a left-handed arrow?
No, that's UHF, is mostly actually UHF or VHF, or do you wanna get both, or, you know?
In Oklahoma, all the repeaters are set on UHF by convention. We all agreed as a repeater group to come up with just UHF repeaters. There are VHF repeaters. We have none in Oklahoma. This Radionity is dual band, so it will do VHF and UHF.
Is there any action on VHF? Yeah,
There is, yes.
Some in the Northeast.
Yes. Dallas have some? Okay. And I'm going to say with Spectrum the way it is, everybody's going to UHF, but my guess is that the early guys said, hey, we got an antenna, let's just bolt this onto that antenna and let's go. And then that's by convention off it goes. So this does both. The older ones do just UHF.
Their TYT came out with one that's called the 217 that does both.
Yeah, there's a lot of radios. I mean, we can do an hour and a half on radios. Yeah. My favorites are our finder, our reference finder that has the call sign books. Have you seen those call sign books?
Here's the radio.
Oh, I hate you.
I don't own it yet. I'm helping them to beta test it, but this is the R finder.
Is that dual band?
No,
Okay.
they don't have a dual bander out yet.
Yeah, the dual band is coming out soon. They say this April, June. But it is a Android phone that has VHF, UHF. Oh, cool. I didn't know you had that. Very
Yeah, this is the K one. This came out in February.
Yep.
And
UV is
still
coming
got
out.
a few bugs, but
They all do. They all do.
but working on it. But it's nice because you have access to their repeater directory.
It will automatically set, if you drive into Dallas, it will set radios, frequencies based on your location.
Wow.
So if you're a guy where's David Clare? He's the guy that needs this. If you're driving cars for a living, you drive into Tulsa, it will flip over to Tulsa because by GPS it knows that you can't talk to Norman anymore.
Yeah, now you still have to select what repeater you want, but it'll pull up the guides for you.
Right. Right. Now, it's not $85.
No,
What's
they're $6.99, but
Six-
you're basically paying. The reasoning is you get a cell phone, which you're going to pay $6.99 for,
Right.
and you get a radio to go along with it.
Yep.
And I've got this one. I've got an AT&T SIM in this one, and like I say, it's got a few bugs, but it works pretty well. It's not your grandpa's radio. If you're used to the TYT or one of those, your world changes a little bit when you get on one of these, but I like it.
That's going to be my next one. When the dual band, when the UV one comes out, I'm going to have to chase that one next. That's awesome. Thanks for that demo. So, talk arounds. Are you on SCARS, Bill? What channel are you on?
Yeah, scars.
So you hear me? Hello. Test.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm keying the radio, that's not very exciting, but I'm keying the radio and I can talk across the room, we're all used to that. Can you hear a little delay? Hello, test, 1, 2. Can you hear me now? 1, 2, 3.
UHF?
Sorry?
You got UHF?
Yeah. Yeah, pull up, this will be 443.825. So if you've got a UHF talkie, pull it up on 443.825, and you actually listen to the pulse. Those pulses are what's actually sending from here to his radio.
Are you still staying today?
On this radio I am, yeah. I've got it programmed on. I messed up and I put somebody else's ID in this radio. So if you can, go ahead and turn that up, is that the FM? $440. 488. 448. 443.825. Sorry, 443.825. The pulse piece that you're hearing. Yeah, but that is the actual radio pulsing. And you can actually hear the 30 millisecond pulses. We have 2 time slices, and that's a concept you got to get big time, is A and a B time slice. The pulses, what I'm on, are the time slice 2 pulses that I'm talking to Bill on. The pulses between the quiet time is time slice 1. So if we had another radio, I don't know if somebody else got one on talk around. If we got another radio, it would actually fill in those spots. So that's how you get 2 channels at the same time. Those pulses are timed, critically timed, so that one will come in, the second one will come in. The first one will come back in, the second one will come back in. So those pulses are, there you go. That's a good
When I
one.
go to talk around, it says invalid.
Yeah, it could be not enabled on that. But that's the idea. You can actually go simplex, N5H0. You can go simplex from radio to radio. That pulse is the data that you're hearing. That's how the signal actually gets transmitted. So that's driving down the road, that's what's going out. That's the little pulses. You can hopefully understand why you get 40% battery life, better battery life. Yes, sir.
What's the normal bandwidth?
Bandwidth is the same as VHF.
Talking narrow, 12 and a half.
Well, it's 25 for the,
12 and a half, 2 6.25 channels.
well, yeah, you're right. 12 and a half per channel. 12 and a half for the whole channel. 6 and a half for half a channel.
No. 6 1/4.
Quarter. I got a left-handed 6 and a half, so it's 6 1/4. Thank you. Too much drinking and driving.
Too much driving, not enough drinking.
You heard a man. There it is.
That's why we let you have the pick.
That's why my Prius has got golf ball size holes in the side of it because of all the hail. Same frequency on both radios. Here are some of the radios. We kind of talked about this before. The Redivis Alliance, and I love the spelling. I'm thinking it was Chinese people who were trying to spell it correctly and missed. But it's really great for doing some search stuff where you can pick it up. That's a new one that's come out, same in that price range. Radiality, TYT, MD380, and the Connect Systems, should be 580, I typoed. Oops. 580 on that, that's the cheaper, the lower range. Motorola's got their typical range of $500 radios that are awesome. They will automatically roam. Jeff was careful to say that when you went to Dallas, you had to select a new one out of a list, because Motorola, if you drive from here to Tulsa, it will just automatically roam and do its thing, pick up all the right signals. Theoretically is what I'm told.
Our system works perfectly.
That's why you have a job. When you program these, things you need to know is the DMR ID. Bill asked if I stand. I keyed mine in wrong. It's 3140097, and that's this guy named Stan that I keep stealing his thunder.
Yeah, he called.
Yeah, I figured. Color code is something that we put on these radios. It's like a CTCSS, or it's like a PL tone. If you put two repeaters on the same channel, this lets you say color code 1 is Norman, and we actually do. Norman's shares a channel with somebody up in Northeast, I forget who it is now. And we're color code 1 and they're color code 2. So that just digitally separates the two to keep you from talking over each other. Question?
So everything we're using, all the programming is gonna be on color code 1.
All the ones for Norman are in color code 1.
Yeah.
If you go to the programming sources like OK DMR on our website, the DMR's information, color code will be listed. And there's one or two guys that actually flip to a different color code. I don't know why. But typically it's always 1.
Mark,
Yes, sir.
Mike has 3 questions. DMR ID,
DMR ID.
is that yours for life?
Yes, your DMR ID should be yours for life.
If you have 2 radios, do you need 2 DMR IDs?
If you have 2 radios, you do not need 2 DMR IDs. You need 1, and you can use the same DMR ID. One caveat is if you have one of these little devices at home, a little home hotspot, you add a number or 2 at the end. So I would be 3140 197.01 for my first hotspot, my 02 for my second hotspot. Yes, sir?
Is this briefing on the website?
Yeah. And the third is?
Does it make
Oh.
more sense on the website?
Does it make more sense on the website? I don't know. Less drinking. Yes, sir.
You talked about simplex quite a bit earlier. Can you talk full duplex?
Can you talk
No,
full
no,
duplex? Not with these radios. Now, 4 radios, you can put 1 pair on time slice 1, talking this way, and 1 pair on time slice 2, talking that way,
Okay.
if that answers your question, Your Honor. Not with 1 radio.
Okay.
Not with 1 radio. I'm sorry?
It's effectively stored forward.
No, there's not really a store and forward. The only store and forward is between me and the time it comes out. There's a linear channel. When it goes through the repeaters, it routes through. I guess if you're calling a computer router storm it forward, yes.
You're taking digital, and you digitize the audio, you take digital information that has to go in, and whether it's passed through or not, you're actually encapsulating that within the
Technically as a store and forward packet. It is not storing the entire conversation and forwarding it along as another piece. And I understand both.
It seemed like with the two time slices, if you set it up right, which apparently you can't, you could one guy talk on slice 1, the other guy talks on slice 2, then you've got duplex. But that doesn't work that way.
Not in DMR protocol. Can you rig it? Yes. I mean, this technically the wherever it is, the Radioddity has 2 receivers in it, and you can transmit on one time slice and come back on the other. Yeah, you can do that, but it's
Complicated.
yeah. Yeah. I think the good people at the commercial side are trying to keep away from that because they want to sell twice as many radios. Think. Is that right, Jeff?
I can't say anything.
Oh. Non-disclosure, I get it. No, that's a good question. But no, it is a one-way set of piece. Unkey and come back.
Yeah. Now, there is a technology called NextEnd from Kenwood.
See, more money.
Yeah.
More money, more money.
Well, it's ICOM and Kenwood working together on it, and you can talk simplex or duplex on that.
Full duplex.
On a simplex then?
Huh?
To run full duplex on a simplex then?
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah. One and down and back. And it's more money, more money. Now, will we get that eventually? Yes. I'm sure we will. Yes, sir.
So if I'm on TS1 and he's on TS2, we can't talk to each other?
Unless, I'll say the quick answer is no. The long answer is unless you're both on the same talk group. So if you're on time slice 1 talking on the SCARS talk group, and I'm on time slice 2, talking on the time slice, we will network together and it will communicate. Full stop. That's a waste because we're now using 2 channels if we're in the same town. Now, if you're in Norman and I'm in Chicago, I'm going to be on time slice 2, you're going to be on time slice 1. There's no need to get that correct. All you have to do is get the talk group correct. It's not a pair. Does that help? That's a good question. All of these are good questions, and I know because I struggled with them 2.5 years ago, and it was really difficult running through it. Now we get to talk groups, which I hinted to. This is the list that we typically put in the talk groups that we're producing out of here. A talk group is what?
You didn't put 955 in there.
I ran out. It's right there. 955 is the YL. I'm legally not allowed to talk on the YL channel because you won't let me. 955 is the YL one. There are thousands of these that you can pick from. George talks all over the world. Where was your first contact?
Israel.
Israel. That's like Israel, Texas?
No.
And what was that using? Was that on what channel? What talk?
310, and that was from the sofa.
So and the idea is on these talk groups, think of them as different channels on a TV. As long as George and I are in the same one, we can communicate. As long as somebody else is on the same one, 2 other people are on the same talk groups, they can communicate. These are, those packets go through, they are forwarded to a router, to 43 servers worldwide, that all the signals, when you key that button down, goes to those 43 servers, and it gets routed to everybody else in the world. So if I'm in Chicago and Peter's in Singapore, or I'm in Norman and Peter's in Singapore, which happened at last field day, he forgot to turn his radio off because 4 o'clock in the afternoon is not 4 o'clock in the afternoon in Singapore. It's actually a really bad time to wake up. Yeah. Right, Peter? I hear this response from somebody who's a grumpy sounding person. It's like, what are you doing? And he gave his call sign from over there. Oh, sorry, I woke you up. So it does not matter where you're at when you use these talk groups. That goes through the system and it gets passed through all the routers to make that happen. You do nothing. You select one of those pieces and off you go. So you are using TAC 310, which is, they call it TAC 310 as a name, Tactical Action Channel. Somebody came up with that for a long time ago. And the idea is that's talk group number 310, and that's where people will get together and meet, and from all over the world, they just want to chat. Yes, sir?
There's a limited number of slots in that talk group?
Limited number of talk, well, there's, each talk group is a slot, just to be careful. They are limited to, I'm guessing it's a 32-bit number, but it's like 7 digits is the way they've got it encoded. So 9 million, they quote a number of about 7 or 8, 9 million of those. They used to be just wide open. So if you and I, if George and I were ISIS members trying to communicate, we would pick numbers. Oh, it's recording. And we're not. We're really not. I don't drink when I drive.
Use a different example.
Okay.
Boy Scouts.
Boy, no. You got to hear the end of the example. We're ISIS guys. And allegedly, if I pick a random channel of 12 million, or 4,000, or 200, we're now communicating with no visible means of traffic.
The private channel.
Yeah. And some friends of ours in those 3-letter agencies kind of said, we don't like that. we got to do something different. So they're now locking down the talk groups to fixed areas. They're saying, okay, United States is the 3-1 in the DMR ID is the United States, and the 4-0 means Oklahoma. If you're a federal wonk, you know that 4-0 is our state code, FIPS code. And the 0197 means I was the 197th, actually 198th, because I start with 0, person to set up in Oklahoma. So Oklahoma is set up with 3140. We have to kind of approve any channels, talk groups that go on in our hierarchy. Kind of deal. So no, technically there's not a real deal. You can use those channels, you can use those talk groups. The network, the big 43 servers do not pass them unless they're approved. So if you pick one that's wonky, it's not getting through the router. Yes, sir?
You know, like 91 is World Talk Group.
Worldwide.
Worldwide?
Yeah, and like they have, starting at 1600 or 1700 World Check-In.
Mm-hmm.
And every Saturday. But you got that, and then what, 92 is Europe, and 93 North America.
There are millions of them. This is nationwide right now. Yeah, it's called weather.com, go there. You'll hear a lot of the weather stuff and all that kind of noise going on, just like the rest of amateur radio. You got questions?
Yeah, so, you said that 40 in your ID number.
Yep.
Was for Oklahoma.
Correct.
What happens when you move? You gotta change your ID?
No. Good questions. No, you do not have to change your ID. The ID is just to make sure that when you click that button, it shows up on your radio, on somebody else's radio with the next guy. It's a routing
Like your birth certificate. It's like your birth certificate. You were born with that radio in Norman, in Oklahoma.
Yeah, you don't have to change it on your location.
No matter where you live.
It doesn't matter where you move throughout the area. You can use it. Now, can you use multiple ones? Yes, they discourage it because it runs them out of numbers. But no, you don't have to change. You don't have to move. You can use the one you have.
And the call sign shows up.
It'll pop the call sign on your. Now, what you do is what used to be used, you could use anything. Recently, because of those 3-letter agency guys, they now will not route an invalid number. So somebody, I don't remember who it was, had a radio that they couldn't transmit in. They had typoed their ID like I did. I happened to pick somebody else's call sign or ID. They picked one that wasn't valid, and it just will not route. They can talk locally, it won't route through the system. So they want to make sure who they know who it is. It is not a legal mode of identification. We'll talk about that in a bit, but that is correct. We've kind of hit this before. The programming is set up in general stuff. That's where you put your radio ID in. And that's something that you have to personalize for your call sign, your code plug, no matter what you do. I have to use one different from somebody else so that they know who I am. I am different. Yes, that is correct. The contacts list is where you put in all of the talk groups that you want to talk to. Or so if I want to talk to 995, the YLs, I put in a contact of 995, and I have it a group call sign. The second one is a private one, and I don't see Quincy here, but Quincy has set up private calls, and you can set up a private call, and if you put my call sign, I think Peter did this once, put my ID as a private call, it will then address it straight from Peter to me, and I will be the only one that hears it. It'll pop up on the radio. So that's private call versus group call. Channel programming is where the difficulty comes in. All of the topics we just talked about are on this encapsulated as one little page. The name is what displays on the screen. Frequencies, transmit and receive. You'll see color code right here is our color code 1. The contact is, this is going to be the SCARS piece. Repeater slot is time slot 2. We, by default, we've assumed that in Oklahoma, everything that is Oklahoma level or smaller goes on talk group 2, so that we can time slice 2, so that we can keep all of the local stuff there in the time slice 2. And if you want to go play with the long distance stuff to Israel, then you put it on time slice 1. That's our convention. Here's what we talked about before, allow talk around. I think Chad said this, there's the little button on the piece. You can either allow it or disallow it. Remember when you're looking at these DMRs, they were meant for commercial guys. They were meant for Jeff to program and give to his people that know nothing about radio. So there's a lot of little stuff that's hidden back in here. TOT is total golden thumb. Yeah, total golden thumb seconds. I don't know officially, there is a timeout on the network, but it's on the order of 120 seconds for the network timeout. This is where you can.
There isn't a timeout.
There is not?
Remember the guy?
Oh, yeah.
For half an hour?
Oh, yes, the snoring guy.
There's one on now that was on for hours.
Peter had a guy, he actually heard it live, but there's a guy 23 or 24 minutes that he was snoring and fell on his radio.
And the 7200 guys have invaded DMR.
17, oh really?
The rude, obnoxious people.
Oh.
Telling people to shut up and...
Yeah, the repeater police are there too, great. This is kind of graphic representation of what I talked about for channels. You got channels, I've got show 1 through 6 here. So as you rotate, you go from 1 through 6. And as you go from zones, you go down, up and down the page. This one's got one of my little favorites called Parrot. Anybody know what Parrot does?
Parrot.
It replays your, you see what you're broadcasting and it repeats it back to you.
That's exactly right. So if you're the guy that gets on one of the nationwide channels and goes, I need a radio check, switch over to Parrot and key the radio down and you can hear what you sound like. It will store and forward in the big macro sense. You key down that radio, and as long as you key down, it will record that at the first server level. As you unkey, it will play back that audio. Let's see if we got one here that's set up. Turn on the Parrot. Hello, N5HZR test. They didn't get an audio. Hello, test N5HZR.
It's hard to get into the repeater from in
Yeah.
here.
Well, this is coming.
There we go.
There we go. It was long delay echo. When it was the first one, there was another conversation going on in that section. So it's all around, and it will take usually that long to come back because it holds on to that piece and plays it back at you. So if you're wanting for a radio check, just keep. I was listening yesterday. Some guy on 3100. I want to do a radio check, and some other guy came in from 5 states away, and he said, "Oh no, he was actually from England." He said, "Oh, you're sounding good over here in England. I'm glad you did. I need a radio check too. I just put my stuff." Oh, jeez. Both of you guys could have gone to Parrot. However, it's a good way to get started in a conversation. Okay, etiquettes. This is all on the website in detail, so don't take notes. These are all the etiquette things. We're going to go through the piece that just makes a difference. Use the repeater that's closest to you. In Oklahoma City, there's a ton of them. Use the one that you are closest to. There's one on that big 750-foot tower. Use the one that's closest to you. Use the Norman one instead of tying up the statewide one all the time. Check your audio level. You've got to know what you're doing. If you overdrive that audio, you can make all kinds of nasty stuff happen. Use that Parrot feature that we just came through it. Use the smallest communication group, smallest talk group to make it work. What?
You mean I don't talk to you on the worldwide talk group? Why not?
Yeah. Because you can light up, what is the number now?
It's my radio, dang it.
You can light up thousands of repeaters as you do that. So if you're both in Oklahoma, use Oklahoma. If you're both in Oklahoma City, use Oklahoma Eastern. If you're both in Tulsa, use Tulsa. Yes, sir.
What I'm understanding, this networking is the same as any band on amateur radio. There's going to be idiots out there that's going to screw it up.
Oh, yeah.
And we have proof. Thanks for the setup. Yes, there are idiots. Yeah, the woof hong is yes. There are, you can fall asleep and snore on the thing. I thought it was kind of funny. Now the people after that were furious, because, you know, he shouldn't do that.
Oh, yeah.
Get over
He
it.
had a good nap.
Yeah, he had proof. He had proof. Like I said, these are all on this stuff. The big thing that DMR that people usually don't do the first 2 or 3 or 10 times is when you turn it on, you will get a,
Mark, you got a 1 minute, okay, we're looking.
Australia, please come now, space them out.
Real quick, I'll just let you hear this. This is Top Group 91.
Tell me.
So,
say hi to your buddy.
the interesting thing is every Saturday at 11 o'clock, daylight time.
WW91 is the top
worldwide
group.
checking net on Top Group 91. And it's a demonstration when you check in. Last week they had 310 check-ins around the world. It's just a demo, and then you hear the net control. We don't start from the Far East, and then you move to Taiwan, down to Australia, to India. There's check-ins. You know, then to Africa, East Europe, West Europe, and then about 15 minutes later you get to the East Coast of America.
Yeah.
And then, but if anything else you want to go check out, we have that worldwide check-in nets.
And that's every Saturday.
Every Saturday at 10 o'clock, we have a worldwide YL net as well.
1600 UTC.
Ours is, yeah.
On the 2IT 380,
Yep.
the talk groups aren't numbered on the channels, are they?
We don't display them on the channels,
On the
no.
tech, 310, 311, 312, they are, but the rest of them.
They just have a description.
Right.
We just put a description on them. Yep.
So if I want to go to channel 91 and listen to that, do I go to worldwide or do I go to English speaking worldwide?
No,
Worldwide.
it's on worldwide. It's not in a code.
have to- you
It's
have
supposed
to-
to be changed.
You have
It's
to
not
add
913.
That sounds confusing.
Oh, that is confusing. That's why we're doing this. That's exactly right.
It's on 91.
The users
If you
of
had the
this, do
earlier
you still
code plug,
feel
it
like
wasn't
an
in there.
amateur radio operator.
Well,
I've never felt more amateur in my entire life. How's that?
But we would have to go to the programming to see what talk group.
Or you can look on the web. I list them all on the web.
Okay.
Each one that we have listed. Yep.
I want to address what Harold just said, because I've had the same thought myself. There's a lot of people who think that the digital modes and stuff isn't real ham radio. And I have to admit that my favorite way of contacting somebody is still a microphone attached to a radio attached to an antenna. However,
Amen, brother.
This is it.
this is 2018, and I can't tell you the number of people that I've heard while listening to 310 or Worldwide or whatever, who are so excited to be able to get into ham radio and talk with somebody on the other side of the world without having to worry about band openings or any of that other stuff, or to be able to do it with a $100 radio. And they really feel like that they're part of this hobby that they really wanted to get
Well,
into.
I can see the aspects of it.
Yeah.
I mean, $100 radio,
Yeah.
basic technician license.
Uh-huh.
You don't need a 70-foot tower and a $3,000 antenna and an $8,000 radio.
Yeah.
And you can do the same thing. But it seems to me the feeling is not there, and that's the reason why I don't
Well,
own
but
it.
not for you, and maybe not all the time for me, but remember, for those of us who've been in the hobby for a long time, maybe we do qualify the different, but remember, through the years, when I got started, I was just on CW and AM. And then
That's all you were allowed to do is CW.
Sideband. And then the different facets of ham radio came along. And the nice thing about it, it opens it up for everybody to enjoy. So maybe it's not my thing completely all the time, maybe it's not your thing, but there are a lot of people who are really excited to get into this hobby because of the digital mode.
Well, the only other question that I have, and I'll be quiet, like we discussed with folks getting on here that may not be at the amateur level of
What are you talking amateur? You talking about, I don't know, jack or, professional amateur? 75,
Well, there's a courteous,
7200?
a courteous operator. It seems to me with this, at the technician level and bringing up, it's gonna bring people in there that
Well, it is, just
may
close the
not be
door.
above board to actually be there.
I got my license, nobody else needs theirs.
They're already all over the place, even on HF, just go to 7200.
Jerry's got a question, Maker.
How do we train people? If we don't like the way they're operating, how do we train them? We bring them in, we integrate them, we talk to them. We try and lead by example. If you don't lead by example, if you just shut them out, you're not training.
For a younger generation,
Like you and me.
like myself, my wife asked me the one question last night: what obnoxious antenna are you gonna be putting up?
Everybody's wife asked that question last night, probably.
Now, I will not have to put one up for this.
No, that's a good point. You've
Not
got,
everybody has $12,000 to drop.
right, and
Well, let me ask a question. What is the difference between that and like a messenger on Facebook? Same thing, you can talk to anybody all over the world that way.
what's the difference between that and 6 meters?
Well, if the internet is gone, if the internet is down, those things won't work.
They'll still work in
They'll
simplex
work.
mode.
Yeah, they'll work
Right,
locally.
and that's just like the same fight we had when VHF came back in the good old days.
If the internet goes down, the repeater still works.
Repeat it locally, it still works. Locally, yeah,
Just like any other.
just like any other radio device, yeah.
Mark, I was just going to add in on the other end of, which we are all getting there sooner or later, you do hear people on DMR that are relegated, I won't use the word relegated, either in a retirement home, invalid, in a hospital. And they found that this is a way that they can still, and they are, they've been in the hobby for 40, 50 years, and they says, I've been shoved into a nursing home and someone put me up with this, and this is the best deal.
Very good question. David made the comment earlier that Don was over in convalescing, and my first thought was, I'm gonna bring one of these over to him and let him sit there and talk to the world. Because George does it from his couch every day. Well, the first contact. His first thing is, I got on the radio 24 hours later, he said, yeah, I made one contact. What do you mean? Well, it was what, 2 hours, hour and a half? Hour and a half, 2 hours to a guy in Israel. I said, okay, I'll let you live with that one contact.
Last statement, this is just one part of the whole thing.
Exactly. We're not saying get rid of CW.
I talked to
It's
the
just
guy,
another tool in the toolbox.
101 years old. And we had to leave because it was time for him to go down and get his lunch at the home that he was in. But this was his whole world. I mean, other than that,
Yeah.
at 101, he was able to talk all over the world in a facility that wouldn't allow him to have anything else than a portable radio.
And if he has memory loss issues, the next guy he talks to tomorrow won't know that he's told the story 10 times. I mean, it's a perfect, it is a perfect fit for
I
that.
resemble that.
Tomorrow you won't remember. And Peter said we're all getting there. Good questions, good stuff. That's nationally they're trying to say the same thing. And my statement is, DMR is this big, amateur radio is that big. I can't do everything in DMR. I don't talk to all the foreign people that George does. He talks to foreign people all over the place because that's what he wants to do. He sits on his couch and talks to people.
We just set
Yeah.
George's entire family up, since everybody has a ham radio license. Some tech, some general, some extra. Anyhow, we now have the entire family set up on DMR that can all talk, and we can have a family night.
And that, what I'm passing around, is the server list of the conversation, the actual transmissions from 2 or 3, how many were in that list? 3?
4 of us.
4
We
of
just
them.
added the 2 got the radios that I programmed yesterday.
2
so.
here, 1 in Florida, 1 in New Jersey, all talking on DMR. So for that, it's a really cool thing. That's the stuff that's available on the web. You can go online and look at it. We're not talking about that today, but you can go look at what conversations have happened, where they come from. It uses your ID to pull up your call sign. That's how it marries the two. Yes, sir?
Where is the Norman repeater and what is the coverage?
Norman Repeater is physically located on the Blender building, which is officially known as the
Physical Science Center.
Physical Sciences Building.
Physical Science Center.
It is at
433-825.
443-825, and all that stuff's listed for the state on our webpage, SCAR's webpage, the DMR webpage. It's all the repeaters in the state located. We are there. Coverage radio radius. More drinking. Coverage radius is Newcastle is easy. Peter's house is at 96, is probably got to be outside to be there with a talkie, right? Inside works?
Not with my super elastic signal stick.
Oh. That's a good point. So east, yeah, you're probably out.
120th and Alameda.
And you're making it there? 120th and Alameda is on the east side. So we're looking about 40-mile-ish radio with talkies. We've got guys in, south of Tecumseh, whatever that's called. The name.
McCollum?
No, somewhere in there. South of Tecumseh that will actually talk in through Norman on a small beam and a mobile radio. So I think it's 80 miles, 70 miles what they're getting on that one. So it's got very, very good coverage in this area. I physically talked to Jeff one night coming in from Tulsa, and I was still on the turnpike, and we talked all the way through Oklahoma City to my house at 84th and 9 and never lost it, which is unbelievable.
We usually lose it a lot.
Yeah, well, we probably did. That was before they recorded it.
A 25-watt exterior antenna would obviously do better.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you're sitting across the street from it, it's wasted. You're just sending data packets. You know, you can be the biggest guy on the block on the S9 plus whatever rating, but if you get into the system, you get into the system. You know, it's just, if you get there.
I am the biggest guy.
I chose my words carefully. But from your house, no, it wouldn't make a darn bit of difference. Now, if you're trying to get into somewhere else, yeah. If you live, Quincy down there in Marlow has, what's it, 80 foot? Like that. And they get into here all the time from down that area. Scanning is a possibility. We're not going to talk about it here, but you can set up multiple scans. The Radiodity radio has 2 VFOs that run simultaneously, which makes Justin very happy because he lives out in the sticks and he can listen to the SCARS, the 06 or the N5MS repeater, but he can't talk on that one. So whenever he talks, it will transmit on the East Oklahoma City one, and he can listen on the SCARS one, and he can see if we have any activity, and he'll jump on it, and he'll listen. It ticks off Jeff because it's got 2 different things going at once, and you got to be careful which channel you're transmitting on when it goes back. That's a feature or a bug, depending on your attitude with that. Code plugs are personal. You'll get one that you work, and then like George, he has to adapt it to make sure that he gets his people in the East Coast and West Coast. Michelle, who's got all the YL stuff, David Clare, who drives all over the area, he's got to get in stuff all over. So you got to make sure that you adjust those to make them happen. There's the extra credit scanning and dual channel, which I hit for both of those. Now, the big question is, you had a ton of questions. How many more do you have? Yes, sir.
Okay, now we're going to the zones. On the Radiodity, right now I've just got 2 programmed in, and so I use the use the left arrow to bring it down to the next one. But if I have 3, 4, or 5, will it just keep cascading down?
Well, what you're doing is flipping between the 2 on the Radiodity. It's got 2 a dual VFO. So that left button will switch you between the top and the bottom VFO.
Okay.
On that one, you hit the top right button, and it will give you a zone. So if you hit that, I'm sorry, top left button. Top left button, and it'll give you an option to change the zone. and you just go in there and select the zone.
Green button,
Yeah,
so, okay.
Yeah.
And then pick the zone from it.
and then pick the zone, so you can have 20 zones, you up and down the
They'll
thing.
make it half that.
On the 380, MD380, it's done differently. You can do a side button that goes up and down. It gets really crazy at that point because each radio is different. And literally what makes one guy happy makes another guy mad. And we could go into those differences all day.
32 per zone.
Same as
I'm sorry?
Walmart.
Look at 32 per zone.
Chicken out where.
16 per zone. I think that there's a new software has 32, I think. No, 32 per,
I'm using 311.
yeah. 16 is typical for that. Yes, sir.
Oklahoma is all Brandmeister.
Yes.
Texas, they've got 4 or 5 different, 6, I don't know. how
Whole
many,
other country.
bunch of them. Is there anything that needs to be done to communicate between those different brands?
Very good question, and that's what these guys did with setting up with his family. Here in Oklahoma, we're all Brandmeister, which is the networking stuff. Nobody cares at this meeting. It is cool because it lets you, the user, control the repeater. DMR is the Motorola way of doing it, which means I'm the radio repeater operator, rather, I know better than you guys. So I'm not gonna let you have fun with my system. So that's the two attitudes differences between those two groups. The cool thing is that talk groups 310, 311, and 312 are bridged between those two networks. So if you live in New Jersey, you can use 310. I think that paper that went around, Georgia, was that 310 that you guys are using?
Yeah.
So they're using 310, and Motorola's network connects to 310. It's actually a third network is how they get around that. They connect to 310, and Brandmeister connects to 310. And then those signals will bridge together. So if you're listening on TAC 310, 311, 312, you're not certain where that signal comes from. But you can communicate to friends in other areas that do not have the same system you do.
They were bridging the YL talk group, but then they cut it off, and all the ladies that were on the DMARC repeaters can no longer participate in the net.
Yeah, she said they were bridging the YL 995 channel
955.
talk group, and they quit bridging that. Politics. Remember there's ways to screw it all up?
Yeah.
They're politics. Yes, sir.
I guess my question is, if we want to talk, if she's in Texas, and I'm wanting to contact her ID number.
I don't think they bridge private calls across the, I'm sorry, question is, or answer is?
She's in Denton, right?
What I read, they're not allowing private calls.
Across the bridge?
Yeah, across the network.
You can use
Your
an open
repeater
spot.
You can, but not.
Yeah, there's a whole piece that we could go another seminar called a hotspot. And that little device is, do you have one here?
Mm-hmm, in the back.
Open spot?
Open spot's one, hotspot's the generic term. Oh yeah, she brought hers. Perfect, thanks, appreciate it. I'll just take this with me. This is what's called an open spot. It's a repeater in a blue box. This is a standard wireless router. So this little guy connects the open spot to the internet wherever she goes. So you're doing it on your phone. So she connects the little wireless router here to her phone, and this connects to the radio. So you could be driving down the road anywhere, this is a David Clare especially, driving around the road anywhere you're at in the world, and it will connect with a little piece. They have a brand new one now that's all self-contained. You don't have to buy 3 pieces and hook them together. $270 called a nano spot. Somebody had one, Quincy had one, he's on here. But you could do that where it goes straight into the internet from that location. But if you're physically there, those calls won't work. You have to be TAC 310, 311, 312. Or, there may be a Brandmeister in that area. Brandmeister.network, if you go there, they will show you a route of every repeater is physically listed on that device, so you can see where every repeater is at.
I also understood that DMR mark, where you get your ID number from, Brandmeister is having some difficulty with some of the numbering system for the ID numbers. So Brandmeister is associating, it's like what it starts with is not recognizing those ID numbers. When you said to change your address, you can change your location address with DMR. You keep the same number, but you can change your physical address, because like on the new Anytone, it actually gives location as well as the ID number.
And that the beginning part is what we were talking about, those first 4 characters, 3140 to be the state. So that's, what they're doing
No,
is,
that's for top groups, I'm talking about the ID number.
no, that's the talk group ID, is the 3140 is state of Oklahoma. So my talk group starts with, my ID starts with 3140. Texas talk,
But DMARC, they said DMARC is associating ID numbers now because they're up to 92,000 people in the network. Some people have been getting a 1 at the beginning.
Yeah.
And Brandmeister's not recognizing them, is after a certain date, they're not gonna recognize those ID numbers that start with a 1.
Back to that, there's lots of ways to get mad at people in this hobby. That's one of them. And they've done that 2 or 3 times.
Because DMARC's not working with, Brandmeister wants to work with them, but the DMARC's not wanting to.
Okay, but there's a Motorola rep in the room, so I gotta be quiet.
No, you're good, go ahead.
That's SOP for Motorola.
Yeah.
They've done that forever.
That's SOP for Ericsson too.
Yeah, I mean, the right answer, technical answer is, none of those matter. The actual numbers are distributed by a Russian D-Star entity, is the back end of all of that mess. So they've got growing pains. That's, you know, for
So
instance,
it's still originating in Europe, where it basically started.
Brandmeister, it started in Chicago, and then DMR and Motorola tried to keep the duck small, and then they lost control of it because Brandmeister out of Germany came through and said, we'll just program around you guys. And Germany, the Brandmeister, brand means fire, Meister means chief, so it's fire chief in German. It comes from there. But DMR actually, the DMR amateur guys actually used the D-Star numbering out of some guy in Russia that started it. And they're running out, you know, when you get 999 in Oklahoma, you run out. So what they're doing is they're giving, Texas and California have already run out. They've got 3 or 4 different places they're going. Brandmeister is just not happy with the choices they've made, and they'll figure that all out. They'll get it straight. Hair pulling, all that stuff.
What firmware software should I download?
For the Radiodity, Radiodity's got a brand new one, 311. And that should work for you. But now to get there, you gotta put 2.66 on first and then 3.11. All these have new growing pains. Remember when the early radios would come out and the HF and all that kind of stuff? They'd have to put firmware, you know, in those Collins rigs.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they were called crystals. That's actually where the word code plug comes from. It's a Motorola code plug that you would put in a crystal and a crystal reeds for CTCSS stuff. So all these problems have been around since third. Yes, sir.
All right, this is gonna be blunt.
Yes, sir.
You talk about.
As opposed to the other stuff.
No, I'm serious here.
I thought you said the last one was the last one.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm allowed one more.
Oh, boy. Let's take a vote on that.
Go ahead.
Come on, answer his question, everyone else shut up and go away.
Yeah, everybody shut up. George mentioned he likes to sit on his couch and he talks around the world on this.
Huh?
All right, an example, we never hear George on the repeater, our repeater. I see a lot of people with all their antennas. I don't hear them on the repeater either. Does that mean our repeater, the 06, should basically just rust and go away?
Yeah, I think you should shut it all down.
I do too.
Why?
Why?
What are you talking about?
I think that every week.
Well, I hear 3 people, 4 people on the repeater during the week. I myself being one, this gentleman here being number 2, Where is everybody?
You must get tired of talking to each other. is all I'm saying.
Excuse me?
If I get my antenna up, I'd talk, I guarantee I would talk.
And how long has it been?
George
3
has been
months
on the
trying to get
repeater, I've
that
heard
damn thing
him.
raised.
In fact,
Well,
I've
it took me
talked
a while
to
to
George on
get it
the
assembled.
repeater.
It's all.
I mean, that's a blunt question, but it's not the truth.
No.
Harold, I'm a tech. I'd like
Oh.
to see more people
No,
on
no,
the
no.
station.
I didn't make it down the middle of the room.
I don't know why they're not.
Well, I made this statement before. The best
But you missed
commercial
these two
that we
rows.
have to advertise scars in Norman is that repeater.
Oh, then I'll shut it off.
If people are not talking on that repeater, people do not know we exist, right? Case closed.
They don't answer me.
I've always thought, well, maybe everybody's on HF.
I'm on both.
But you understand